Hey Wolfpack, and welcome back. I hope you all are doing well today. And, as requested, I have brought back 5 more dark web stories. I really hope you guys enjoy. With that being said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even laying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. I was about 10 years old when I started using the dark web on my laptop. I never really liked the dark web, but whenever I was bored, I went on it. I always talked to random people as well. My parents didn't know that I used the dark web, and I knew that they would get angry if they found out, so I always went on it late at night. One day, my parents told me that they're gonna go to my grandmother's house for the weekend, and told me to come with them. As a 10-year-old, I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to do whatever I want, so I faked being sick. I stayed in the house alone because they couldn't find a babysitter. My parents texted me every hour to check if I was okay, and if I was fine with it, important later. I was at home watching TV and eating snacks and got bored, so I decided to go on the dark web. I met a person named 2901W1. We chatted till 4 a.m., and we were comfortable talking to each other. Then, he sent me a link and it said, "Let's check it out." I was a bit hesitant at first, but I joined. It was a chat room, and there were 8 other people with us. Then, I heard a very heavy voice say,
"Welcome. I want everyone to turn on their webcams so we can start the challenge."
Everyone was so confused, and I was trying to process what was happening, that I didn't notice my webcam suddenly turned on. And then, all of a sudden, all the other people's webcams turned on. All of us were panicking and trying to leave, but that heavy voice said again,
"Don't worry, it's just a challenge. If you win, you'll get $5,000. Just wait for 10 minutes.
Everyone seemed to get the message. We all chatted for around 10 minutes, then I heard the voice again. He said,
"If anyone tried to leave or turns off their webcam, it won't end well for you."
And then he laughed, so everyone took it as a joke. The first challenge was to tell everyone scary stories, and we all voted whose story was the least scary. The person we voted, their webcam turned off for 1 minute, and then randomly turned back on. His head was decapitated. Everyone was terrified. 2 of the people left and then joined again. They were dead when they rejoined. My body was shaking with fear. Then I heard that heavy voice again.
"I wasn't joking. Now you guys complete these 5 challenges, and if someone closes out their webcam, they will die."
At this time, it was 5 a.m. I couldn't message my parents without him noticing. I was stuck. Me and the other people in the chat room weren't even talking. All of us were just trying to accept that we were going to die, and this wasn't a joke. The second challenge was to watch a scary jump scare video. It displayed on the chat room. I don't know how. That voice said again,
"The one who looks away first will die."
The video played, and 20 seconds into the video, 2 people looked away at the same time. Again, their webcams turned off, and all we could hear was screams. When they turned back on, they were both dead as well. There are only 4 people left now, including me. The third challenge was to bite your skin until blood came out. That heavy voice gave instructions again.
"The one who is last is going to die."
I bit my arm, and others bit too, but the same thing happened to the last person, and he was dead. The fourth challenge was to take out your teeth. That heavy voice gave the same instructions as last time. The other 2 people were punching their mouth as hard as they could. Their face was a mess. I was trying to pull mine out because I fell last week and my teeth were loose, so it was easy to pull it out. And then only me and the person who sent me the link were left. The final challenge was not to sleep, and the heavy voice gave the instructions again.
"The first one to sleep is going to die."
In the meantime, 2901W1 told me his real name. It's Jake, and we both tried our best to keep each other awake. Jake kept saying, "I'm sorry, and you're an innocent boy. I'm sorry because of me your life will be gone," and stuff like that. I assured him it wasn't his fault. It was now 2 p.m. I knew I was going to get out of this mess, because my parents had been messaging me, and through the corner of my eye, I saw that they said they are coming back, and I was worried, what if they kill them? Jake couldn't stay awake anymore, and he slept. I saw him get killed, unfortunately. I was going crazy the whole time. I didn't know what to do. Then I heard the voice again.
Congratulations. You have won the game. But we aren't going to give you anything. In fact, we're going to take something from you.
I mumbled, "What?" He whispered,
"Your life."
But it was clear enough for me to understand. Then, I felt something grab my shoulder, and there were 4 people there. And as they grabbed the knife, the police came in and saw the knife in their hands, so they shot them. Then, I heard my parents come in. As they barged through the door, they both hugged me and took me to the hospital because of my arm. I asked, "How did you know I needed help?" My mom said, "As I was parking, I saw a black van, and the windows to our house were broken at the time. We called the police, and they came here pretty quick." After some convincing, my mom told me what those guys do. Those guys sell organs and earn money. The guy with the heavy voice still isn't caught. Now, 3 years later, I can't forget it. I have nightmares because of it. I remember it every second of my life. Boredom is hitting everyone hard right now. With social distancing a top priority, we are all finding interesting ways to keep ourselves occupied. I think I may have ventured a little too much, though. It all started 3 weeks ago, sitting in my bedroom. I tossed a softball into the air for a few minutes, before I sat up on the edge of my bed. I looked over at my laptop I had been neglecting since I dropped out of college. I turned it on and began surfing. Nothing much had changed on the net. I visited all the regular sites I used to. Pinterest, YouTube, Tumblr. I thought about what I could do with that piece of technology. This triggered a craving I had for a long time. The want to visit the dark web. I had heard only the terrible things. It's a place to find organs, drugs, and weapons. I had no use for any of those things. But still, curiosity got the best of me. Before I knew it, I was downloading the browser that would bridge my access. Aside from all those scary things that I could find about the dark web, I had seen some videos a while back about mystery boxes. You can pay anywhere from $5 to hundreds of dollars for a plain brown box filled with goodies. The contents were undisclosed, hence the mystery part. This could be something fun, as it was definitely enticing. A 5-minute search landed me on a site that had exactly what I was looking for. Now, I did not have much cash to just blow, so I kept a modest budget of $20. I searched through countless sellers, although I could not exactly tell you why. There was no way of determining which would be the best option, since the descriptions were quite vague. Still, I was a little nervous. I was flushing a crisp Jackson down the toilet. Knowing my luck, I'd receive a box with a chewed-up piece of bubblegum inside. My laptop was one of those you could fold in half and turn into a tablet, so I decided for fate to choose my purchase. I entered my budget in the filters and converted my laptop to tablet form. I closed my eyes and swiped my fingers upwards, then pressed down to make my selection. The selection was not all that great, but I was tired of searching already. I read through what was available. Mystery box, life-changing, valued at priceless, my loss, your gain. Sounded good enough to me. My lips pursed as I purchased it, as if my body was not agreeing with what I was commanding. The box arrived just 3 days later. I could hardly contain my excitement as I carried it to my bedroom. I sat on my bed and studied it a bit. No return address. Typical. My fingernails began picking at the tape and tearing away. Pulling the flaps apart revealed sparkly tissue paper. Cute. The contents inside, not so cute. There was a muddy pair of shoes. No big deal, I guess. But it was a little weirder that the pair of shoes seemed brand new. The soles were not worn out. The tongue did not have the crease and wrinkles that you would expect, and the insides were almost spotless. The next item was a tiny, black, crushed velvet bag. The kind of bags you pull closed with strings. The feeling was not very impressive. I shook the bag around a bit, and thought it sounded like little rocks inside. I pulled the mouth apart and poured out the contents into my hand. An audible "shit" escaped my lips. My hand flipped over to break the contact it had with my skin. They scattered. Teeth? Really? I let my body rid the creeps by giving a little shiver. I peered back into the box. One more item remained. A diamond ring. Maybe this box wasn't such a dud after all. I'm no jeweler, but I did know that a quick look at the brand of authentic gold would most likely result in finding the carats in small print. 18K. Not bad. I sized up the ring, which was visibly small. I wondered if I could have it altered. I might as well get something usable out of this. The next day, I carried my small finding to a local jewelry shop. I inquired about the authenticity, which they verified. A small fee, and a day later, I was sporting new ice. I was pleased with my purchase enough to leave a modest review to my seller, but when I tried to rate him or her, my laptop froze up. I tried everything I could to reboot with no success, holding down the power button, closing and reopening, pressing a combination of keys. Finally, I gave up and let it do its own thing. An hour later, it finally powered off and restarted. I blew this off as a mandated update. The screen displayed the typical downloading files followed by a slow restarting bar filling horizontally. After all that mess, I did not bother to revisit the website. I had probably caught a bug on the damn thing, but was still lucky it worked at all. My day was interrupted by a knock on the door. The other side of my door stood a man who towered over me. I only poked my head out and placed my hand on the outside of the door, almost hugging it, obviously uncomfortable with the unexpected visitor. The man at the door verified my name, then asked if I would follow him down to the station, just to ask me a few questions. Station? What station? I asked. The police station, he responded. In the middle of us talking, I noticed he was staring at my hand, which I jerked away, still unconvinced with what this was all regarding. Regardless, I was too scared to question him, and did as he asked. We arrived at the police station where I was guided into a small room. Only a desk and 3 chairs were inside. A video camera in the corner. The officer proceeded to ask me some questions, where I was on some night 3 years prior, where I was on some night 8 months prior, if I knew a young woman by the name of Selena Romas, if I was familiar with a lady named Melody Stacy. It was all a bit much to take in, but I gladly obliged, as I had no idea where they were going. I knew I had done nothing wrong. I knew I had nothing to hide. I knew that the faster I answered their questions, the faster it would be all over with. I remained in that room for hours. He asked the same questions, in different formats, in an attempt to catch me in a lie. He asked for my permission to search my home, grab what they needed, and get my fingerprints. All that good stuff. Again, as I had nothing to hide, I agreed. Trying to explain where the things came from was no use. They only circled back to my search history. They claimed to know that this was my scapegoat, and even advised me I wasn't going to get out of this one. The officer stated, "We're not buying your bullshit. There was no black web visited from your computer. There's no purchase made from Wolf's 384. Just face it, we got you." That was enough to make my tears stop. I cocked my head sideways and said, "Excuse me? What did you just say?" I continued. "Wolf's 384. How did you know that name of the seller?" I couldn't even remember the name of the seller. For a millisecond, I saw him swallow a heavy gulp. Then he fixed his tie. "Cut it out. You told me. That's what you said when we were at your house," he said. No, you're lying," I didn't say shit. You didn't even tell me why you were there. Why the hell would I bring that up? Like clockwork, a second detective enters the room and interrupts me. He doesn't say anything besides officially putting me under arrest for kidnapping, murder, and false imprisonment. I believe there was more, but I did not catch everything. My surroundings became fuzzy. I felt like I was going to be sick, and my hearing was fading in and out. I just spoke with my lawyer. He says they have a solid case against me. They found Selena's teeth at my apartment. They caught me with Melody's wedding ring, and the shoes they had photographs of me throwing away matched the shoe prints left at Melody's crime scene. My laptop had gruesome photos of their bloated and rotted bodies. My search history was criminal, such as how to frame someone for murder, how to create faux searches, how to hack someone's computer, not to mention the anonymous tip they have on the file, claiming I had gotten drunk one night and confessed to the murders. I don't even drink. Worst of all, being such an introvert and a loner, I have no way to prove my locations for the dates provided. There's no use. I stand warned that I need to sign a plea, or risk the death penalty. The cases have been going on for years now. The government is just ready to solve it, and nothing closes a case better than a guilty plea. There used to be a small YouTube channel called Sam's Online Food Review. It was run by my best friend, Sam Ryder. A channel full of videos that consisted of Sam eating and reviewing food and drinks before a camera. His channel garnered around 10,000 subscribers, which, although it wasn't huge, it was big enough for Sam to be dedicated to it. I can recall numerous times of sitting in the passenger seat of his car, staying out of his shot, as moments prior, he announced he wanted to video himself trying something he picked up at the store. Only moving after he signed off with his signature thumbs up or down and his catchphrase, "I like it" or "I loathe it." He was liked for his friendly attitude and happy all-around good guy persona. He was really well perceived by his audience. Rarely were there any hate comments, and when there was, Sam would shrug them off and keep smiling. Sam was always smiling. Sam's Online Food Review went dark 7 months ago. No warning, no notice, just deactivated. I didn't hear or see from Sam despite numerous phone calls and house visits to no avail. 6 days after his channel was deleted, I called the police to do a welfare check on Sam. I was worried he had fallen ill or hurt himself. The police made entry into his property and found nothing, and Sam was declared a missing person. A week after Sam was declared missing, a dog walker discovered a horrifically mutilated corpse on a railway line. The body had severe lacerations all around the head, arms, chest, and legs, and was almost cut in two across the waist. The decomposing internal organs splayed out of the gruesome V-shaped cut. The autopsy report noted that, although no direct cause of death could be confirmed, it was likely the large slit in the throat that brought on death. The autopsy also turned up questionable findings, including the body missing its stomach and heart, long strips of flesh removed off the chest, arms and lower back, and that the body was exsanguinated. And the scene wasn't remarkably bloody, yet the body was almost completely drained of blood. 2 weeks later, the police had identified the deceased. Despite the damage that had occurred to the corpse, the teeth were intact enough to get a viable reference for dental records. My worst fears for Sam were realized. It was him. The police investigated but could not find forensic evidence of any other person being on the scene. They eventually came to the conclusion that he was hit by a passing freight train. The lacerations and disembowelment attributed to being dragged under, and the missing organs explained away as being eaten by wildlife, a fox maybe. Sam's mother decided it was best to cremate what remained of her only son. I stood next to her as the beach coffin was pulled into the large furnace. As the door closed and the gas jets ignited with a whoosh, she broke down into tears, and so did I. I stood there sobbing for the entire 90 minutes it took for the one of the people I grew up with and shared so many memories with was vaporized. I mourned my friend and done my best to move on, and it was going well, but I got distracted, got a new job, started dating a girl I met through my work. A few months passed, and even though I missed Sam, things were going well, right up to the point when I was browsing Reddit at 3 a.m. that I received a Facebook message from the account of my dead friend. I froze seeing his profile picture in the messenger bubble, a picture taken during good times. Sam's wide smile plastered on his face. I felt a sudden chill. A profound sense of fear enveloped me. You know, the fear that makes you cold, and your limbs ache as the slow drip of adrenaline spreads throughout your body. With dread, I opened the message. It was a link to a file-sharing website. I stared at the seemingly random amalgamation of numbers and letters that made up the URL, my head racing through what the hell was on the other side of that link, and more importantly, why did my dead friend send it to me? My hand, seemingly on autopilot, brought the cursor above the link. With my gut instinct screaming no, I clicked on it. Before my finger had lifted from the click, I immediately regretted what I just did. Chrome opened a new tab to the website. The screen was gray. Apart from a black rectangle in the middle of the page, which had a play button over it, I stared at it, unwilling to click. What I was scared of, I didn't know. Around 10 seconds had passed and the screen refreshed. Instead of the play button, the rectangle had the words "auto playing in 5 seconds" in bright white on it. I watched as the numbers count down, trying to understand what was going on. An abrupt buzzing noise made me jump. The video began to play. The camera was pointed at what appeared to be a grimy, white-tiled surface. I could hear the sound of muffled whimpering, followed by footsteps of someone approaching the camera. There was some slight rustling noise as the camera was adjusted. The screen blurred out as the camera was turned. When the camera came back into focus, I let out a choked gasp. In the middle of a white-tiled room, Sam lay on his back on a stainless steel table, his eyes wide in pure, unfiltered terror. The light of a single bulb hanging over the table reflected off the sheen of sweat that coated his forehead, his naked chest rising and falling rapidly in panic. He looked into the camera and attempted to yell, the noise muffled by a tight cloth gag that was bound around his head. His hands were also bound together tightly with duct tape. I stared at the screen, feeling increasingly sick, my brain failing to grasp what was going on. Before I could even comprehend what was happening, the sound of Sam squirming and whimpering was interrupted by a high-pitched,
"Welcome to Sam's online food review. Today, we have a special treat."
The mocking tone came from behind the camera. Sam's panic increased. He started jerking his body, trying to free his hands, while the voice continued.
"Today, we will try what is considered a delicacy in many countries, although usually a forbidden one that is."
The camera zoomed out slightly, and a man appeared in the frame standing in front of Sam. He was dressed in a white coat with a red striped apron on. He wore a butcher's hat and a cloth face mask. In his rubber-gloved hands, he held a large red-handled butcher's scimitar, and in the other, he held a sharpening rod. The man started running the knife up and down the blade in a smooth fashion, the steel on steel making a smooth noise. Sam's panic-muffled yells growing stronger. The man placed down the sharpening rod and walked around the table. Sam turned his head and started what sounded like desperate pleading with the man. "Poor little lamb," the man cooed. "It won't hurt long, and you'll be delicious." Even from here, I could see that tears filled my friend's eyes. As he struggled, the man rolled Sam onto his front and pulled his head over the edge of the table. The man then walked out of shot and returned with a metal bucket. He placed it on the floor below Sam's head. In a swift motion, he grabbed a tuft of Sam's hair, lifted his head, and started on his throat. Crimson burst from his neck and splashed over the bucket and onto the floor, my friend's body jerking uncontrollably as blood spewed out of his neck like a volcanic eruption. As I watched this happen, I began to throw up. I fell out of my chair in horror. I pulled myself away, not able to see any more. I fell again by the door. The speakers of my computer loud enough to hear what sounded like slicing and grunting I lay curled up in the corner sobbing amidst a panic attack. The minutes feeling like hours. When the sound stopped, I shakily got up and walked to my computer. Avoiding the pool of sick on the floor, I forced myself to look at the screen again. The page had closed. And with Chrome displayed the Reddit screen, the Facebook tab had one notification. I didn't want to click it, but I willed myself to. It was a message from Sam. I like it. Good afternoon, Malcolm. Hi, Miss Jackson. Staring out from under my hood, I looked at the computer screen in front of me. Miss Jackson is the head librarian, and she likes to make the rounds and see how the library patrons are doing. My backside is beginning to get sore from sitting on the hard chair for so long. I wish they would just get some chairs with cushions already. But I guess I could always buy a cushion of my own. Sitting in my usual spot, back in the far corner, away from the main traffic among the stacks, my fingers fly over the keyboard, slipping from website to website. Coming to the library is the only refuge I get from the chaos that reigns at home. Mom's new boyfriend is not the best, and is always opening his mouth and criticizing me at every turn. He is also slightly abusive to her. There's no hitting or anything like that, but he isn't soft with his words towards her. I wish he would just kick him to the curb. But she can't find the strength to not have a man in her life. The library is quiet this afternoon. The staff has grown used to me, and the free internet connection allows me to do my homework and surf the web at the same time. One of the things I like about the library in this small town is they don't have a lot of money or know how to create a really secure internet. I am able to go to websites I probably never would be able to in a larger, more modern and secure location. I found I can even log into the web using a VPN, a private server that masks my activities and identity from any prying eyes. Not that I'm doing anything illegal, but I like poking around the dark web, and that was one place I don't want anyone knowing about my involvement. I stay far away from the drug websites, the human trafficking sites, and the murder for hire sites. I have no use for those kinds of sites. Though, getting rid of my mother's boyfriend would be a good use of an assassin. But she would just cry about his death, and then she'd find herself another guy, probably one worse than this clown. Maybe I could have him trafficked out of the country. No, better, to just leave him alone. I'm doing a search in the Tor search engine, looking for websites that deal with inventions that haven't been made public yet. Most of these inventions are things the government would swoop in and shut down if they got wind of them, or confiscate them. Other than that, they are pretty harmless. Like some kid trying to build a nuclear reactor in his bedroom, or some guy trying to figure out how to build a time machine. The kid has absolutely no source for the fuel for his reactor, and the other guy doesn't want to accept that time travel is against all laws of physics. But it's fun to read. I put in a search for time travel experiments and notice a link to a site that looks out of place. It appears to be a news site, not the usual thing you would see in the dark web. The part that caught my eye was the date under the link. It was 3 days from now. Obviously, it was a mistake by the site. I'm not sure why, but I clicked on the link and waited for the site to open. When it did, it looked like a text version of a regular news site, but from a news source I'd never even heard of. Most of the stories were pretty ordinary, and the dates under their headlines appeared to be correct with today's date. But the story which showed up in the search engine snippet had the same date about 3 days in the future. That wasn't the only thing I found intriguing. The story was about a woman that had been killed in her apartment, but the police were saying it wasn't an ordinary murder. It seemed as if a wild animal had gotten into her apartment and torn her to pieces. The story had even the day and the dates wrong. It said the murder had occurred last night, Saturday, but today is only Wednesday. I looked at the story again, figuring that it had happened last weekend, but I hadn't heard anything about a murder like this in the past few days. If something like this happened in a small city, its news wouldn't have escaped my ears. I read the story again, and then began to think someone was playing an elaborate hoax. It was the only explanation I had. But why someone would hoax a story like that was amazing to me. Some people can play pretty sick jokes, and this appeared to be one of them. I looked at my phone and saw that I had less than an hour before the library closed, and I wanted to get my math homework finished before I go home. There was no way I'd have been able to finish at home. Sunday morning came bright and early with the buzzing of my phone on my bedside table. It was only 7 in the morning, and I had no reason to get up. So, whoever was calling me and disturbing my lazy Sunday morning was going to get an earful. I looked through my half-closed eyes at the display, and see, it's Jackie. Why would she be calling me this early on a Sunday was a mystery. Hello? I grunted on the phone. Mal, wake up, man. You remember that story you told me a couple days ago? What? I said, still trying to shake the sleep from my head. What story? The one about the woman that got killed here in town and looked like a wild animal had done it? Oh, yeah, I said as I rolled onto my back. Mal, she's dead, just like you said. Sleep evaporated from my eyes instantly as I sat up in bed. What do you mean she's dead? Just like you described. Some woman who lives about 3 blocks away from your house. Oh, shit. You haven't told anyone what I told you, have you? Someone like your dad? No, Mal. Why? Because if the police found out I knew about this before it even happened, they would be looking very closely at me as a suspect. I heard Jackie giggle on the other end of the call. You didn't kill her, did you? Good God, no! What kind of person do you think I am? I'm just yanking your chain. Hey, I'm gonna have to call you back. I need to find a paper or watch the news. Okay, call me later. After logging on, I go to the website for the local newspaper, and the main story is about the murder. And even though I don't have the dark web story in front of me, I'm pretty sure it's the same story, word for word. It's Sunday, and the library is closed. I have no other place to log into the dark web, and can't chance it here at the house. The best I'm going to be able to do is get up early tomorrow and get to the library when they're open. I'll have about an hour before I must leave and head for school. Reading through the story again, it is so surreal to me. How could I possibly see a story about a murder that wasn't going to occur until 3 days later? The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, telling me the answers to that question were probably best left alone. Monday morning couldn't come soon enough for me, and now I'm sitting in my usual spot, in the dark back corner of the library. But I'm not alone this time. Jackie is sitting in a chair next to me, watching as I log into the dark web and begin moving toward the news site I'd seen a few days earlier. Before I pull the site up, I look at her and ask, "You sure you want to see this?" Yes, it's probably going to be nothing. But what are the chances there will be another story about something happening in the future? She had a point. I clicked the link and the same news site opened. The third headline dealt with the murder, but now it was current, or even past news. It happened a couple of days ago, so it was moving down on the front page in order of importance. I was about to click on the story link to see if anything had changed in the story, but Jackie gasped and this made me look. The top story was dated for Wednesday night, this coming Wednesday, not last week. The headline read, "Serial Killer Strikes Again." One thing I didn't want to do was click the link, but it was clear that I had to. My fingers trembled as I moved the mouse to the link and was about to press the button, but Jackie reached over and put her hand on mine. "Do we really want to see this?" she asked. I pulled my hand away from the mouse and looked at her. "I don't know, Jackie. The other day, I thought this was a joke or a hoax, but now, obviously, it's not. But what could it be?" I just shook my head. I had no idea what we were looking at. "Maybe the killer works at this news site," she said. "And they're planting the stories." "That might be true, but I can't believe I'm the only one seeing these stories. There must be a lot of other people seeing this, and someone would call the cops." "This is the dark web, Mal. Some of the sick people that slither around in here live for this kind of thing. Like me." "I didn't mean you." "I know, and you're right. There are a lot of people moving around in the dark web I wouldn't want to know in real life." She looked back at the screen and shook her head. "We have to look at it." "Are you sure?" I asked. Yes, though it scares me. Me too, I said as I clicked the link. The story opened and we began reading. It told of an old man living by himself in the eastern part of the city that was attacked and killed in his home. Much like the other murder, he had been torn apart just like the woman had been. The police had no leads, and now the city was terrified that some new serial killer was on the loose. Look there, just under the headline. I looked, and it said that the story had been viewed by over 100 subscribers. That answered the question of whether we were the only ones that knew of this. We have to tell someone of this, she said. But who? Anyone we tell will just think we're crazy. You're forgetting the most obvious person to tell. It only took me a second to realize who she was talking about. I almost felt like slapping myself upside the head when it dawned on me. She pulled her phone from her purse and dialed, switched it to speaker mode, and turned it down so we were the only ones who could hear it. Smithville Police Department, how can I direct your call? I need to speak to Detective Miller. Hold, please. This is Detective Miller. Daddy, it's Jackie. Hey, what's up, Pumpkin? I need you to come to the library. Mal and I have something you need to see. I guess he could tell from her voice that this was something serious, because all he said was that he would be right there. It only took him 10 minutes to get there, because the library is only a couple of blocks from the police station. I think he even walked here. When he found us in the back of the library, he pulled up a chair and asked, "What's up, kiddos?" Jackie pointed at the screen and he leaned in to read the story. Is this some kind of joke? Sir, I said, I wish it was. You noticed the date, right? Yeah, that's a couple days from now. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his smartphone and took a picture of the screen, and then made sure to zoom in on the name of the victim and his address. I don't know what this is, but I intend to find out, he said. Sounds like someone is playing a joke here because of what happened to that woman the other night. I don't like it. Tell him, Mal, said Jackie. He looked at his daughter and then at me. Tell me what? I swallowed my fear, not because I felt concerned, but because I could see he thought that this was still a joke, and I didn't want him leaving and not taking it seriously. Sir, that woman that died the other night, I read a story just like this last Wednesday. You did? You read a story like this 3 days ago before she was killed? Yes, sir. And I thought it was a joke too, until I saw the news yesterday and realized it wasn't. I lowered my head and looked at the floor. I realized if I had said something earlier, that woman might be alive. I could have saved her, I said softly. I felt her dad's hand on my shoulder, and he squeezed it. You did nothing wrong here, Malcolm. How could you know it was real? But now, I need to figure out a way to keep this man safe, and catch the bastard who's doing this. He stood up and leaned over and kissed Jackie on the cheek. Be safe, young lady. I'm going to work. Okay, Daddy. Catch this person. You know I will. We watched as he walked away and turned around one of the stacks, and he was gone. Jackie looked at her phone and said, I hate to say this, but we have to go or we'll be late for school. School? Who could possibly think about school right now? I packed my laptop into my bag and we left the library. When we reached the bottom of the steps in front of the library, we could see her dad walking quickly towards the station. Jackie snaked her arm through mine and said, Come on, he'll catch the killer, but we still need to go to school. I don't think I've ever experienced a day in school that felt longer than this one, or the next day. Wednesday came and went. Jackie's dad got to the victim's house early in the afternoon and hid himself in one of the back bedrooms. Unmarked police cars were less than a minute away, around 8 in the evening. The detective heard some glass breaking in the bedroom next to where he was, and waited until he heard someone come out of the room and started down the hallway. Whoever it was, they were trying to move as quietly as possible, and when they passed the other bedroom, heading for the living room, Jackie's dad slipped out of his hiding spot and followed the guy. When he stepped up behind the killer, he pressed his gun against the back of the guy's head and told him it was over, and not to bother looking for the old man because he hadn't been in the house for hours. This guy had come to the house fully prepared to do what he had planned. He had a backpack full of knives and cleavers. He was dressed in black from head to toe, including the standard black ski mask that the bad guys like to wear. When he felt the gun against the back of his head, the guy started laughing and said, "You really think this is over? It's just getting started." Jackie's dad called in the backup, and within a minute, they had the guy down and handcuffed, ready to take away. When they pulled the ski mask off his face and saw he was just some punk they had dealt with before, he liked to cause minor mayhem, but nothing that came anywhere close to murder. The whole time they were dealing with him, from when they cuffed until they stuffed him in the back of the patrol car, he never stopped laughing. Where was I during all this? Right now, I'm sitting in the library, watching the computer screen. I want to see the story change or disappear altogether. Jackie is at home, praying like she always does, for her daddy to make it home safe. For some reason, tonight she felt the need to put in some extra time asking heaven for a favor. My phone chimed and it's a text message from her dad, saying they caught the guy and it was over. Breathing a sigh of relief, I sat back in the chair and rubbed my eyes. Thank God. As I sat there with my eyes closed, I heard a chime from my laptop. There was a text box in the middle of the screen. Do you really think it would be that easy to catch me? You should have just sat back and watched like all the others here. But you decided to do more than watch. Well, watch this. As I watched, the story on the screen began to change, word by word, sentence by sentence. The story rewrote itself. No longer did it have anything to do with the old man and his murder. When it finished changing, I was horrified at what I saw. I snatched up my phone and dialed the detective's number and almost felt like screaming with each ring. Finally, after a few seconds, he answered. "Hey Malcolm, thanks for helping us. Sir, the story changed." "What does it say now?" "Sir, it's Jackie." Something happened to me a few weeks ago that I planned to keep secret, but recently, it's been eating away at me and I need to speak about it. The situation involves the dark web, but isn't like all the other stories you hear of some unsuspecting soul learning of the dark web through a friend, going on it for the first time and browsing around until they inevitably come across some horrifying page that leaves them sleepless for nights. No, this is the opposite. To be honest, I'm actually the one who would be terrifying these curious souls. You see, I'm a dark web prankster, meaning I spend my free time on the dark web messing with unsuspecting strangers. I join chat rooms and send them links to gory but obviously fake videos. I play similar videos in place of my webcam, in private chats, tricking the other user into thinking that they are chatting with a psychopathic killer. My favorite trick, though, is taking control of their cursor, manipulating the chat room, and making the site unclosable unless they turn off their machine. This one gets the most screams and appalled expressions, and it is all achieved through running some simple bash scripts. Now, some people may think this is cruel, but I see it as a service, a free one at that. You see these people come onto the dark web for these kinds of experiences. They hear somebody tell a scary story of their experience on the big bad dark web, and they want to be able to tell similar stories in a sad attempt to be interesting. They come looking to be terrified, and I ensure they aren't disappointed. Of course, I get my own enjoyment out of it, so it's a win-win. But recently, this has all changed. If you fly too close to the sun, you will eventually be burned, and I am burning. The other night started like any other. I got back from work, made some dinner, and after washing up, I logged into my PC and got to work. I jumped around a few chat rooms, but they were unusually quiet or taking way too long to connect, and when they did connect, people left before I got a chance to mess with them. Eventually, I was able to keep someone around for more than a few seconds. They were some bald dude with a gnarly scar across their head. His ears and face were both heavily pierced, and he had a python tattoo wrapped around his neck. A tough guy. They were always fun to make cry like a baby. The way I usually do these pranks is I keep the screen blank until I see the person, then I choose from the collection of cam clips I have, and slowly escalate it from there. For this specific instance, I chose a clip of a cute girl who starts by smiling and waving. The man smiled back and began typing until a message popped up. "Hi, you're cute." "Thank you, I like your tattoo." We went back and forth typing and discussing ourselves until I decided to start the fun. I took down the video of the girl and replaced it with a video that starts with a man tied to a chair. A masked man that begins to beat the man in the chair with a hammer. To my surprise, the man didn't seem horrified. Instead, he began to wholeheartedly laugh before sending another message. Funny, but I preferred the lady. I replied telling him to shut up or the girl will get it next. Once the message sent, the man's laughter stopped, and he began to stare into the camera with a cold, emotionless gaze. "You shouldn't be so rude." That message was the beginning of the end of my pranking. He began to type again, and when he stopped, my jaw dropped and my fun was over. He sent the message and it was my full name. I quickly moved my cursor up and tried to X out of the chat, but my cursor froze before dissipating before my very eyes. I opened my console and began to frantically type some commands, but each one was denied. Slowly, the chat began to turn black with red font. I was in a full-blown panic now. My heart was racing, and I felt like I had spikes sticking into my arms, legs, and neck. I couldn't control my breathing, and I was sweating profusely. All the while, that psycho was smiling into a camera, and his dirty, yellow teeth glaring at me as he continued to type. "Let's have a look, shall we?" The light from my webcam lit up, and sure enough, down in the left-hand corner of my screen was my terrified face staring aimlessly at the screen. My brain was screaming with instructions at me, but my body couldn't react. I was frozen in fear. Eventually, I snapped out of it and stood up to turn off my computer when he screamed in a deep, grisly, distorted voice. "Wait!" This stopped me in my tracks. I looked back at the screen and he was gone, but only momentarily. When he returned, he was standing up, leaning over directly into the camera. He lifted his hand, balled into a fist, and opened it, revealing multiple human teeth, which fell from his hand and bounced off the desk beneath. He then sent the last message. "See you soon, boy." He smiled as the words in the chat room began to fall off the screen, while a loud screeching noise blared from my speaker. Just then, my computer switched itself off, leaving me standing, staring at my reflection on the darkened monitor. I must have stood there for at least 5 minutes before I snapped out of it and went to bed. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his horrifying smile, and I heard the disgusting sound of the teeth hitting the desk. I called in sick to work the next day, so I could try to relax and went for a run to clear my head. It helped enormously, and 3 days later, I had put the whole experience behind me. However, a week ago, about 10 days after the incident, something happened which has made me tell this story. At about 1 a.m., I was awoken by some strange banging sounds. I got up in a haze and looked out the front window to see an old maroon-colored Toyota Camry parked right behind my car, blocking it in. The banging had stopped, but the stranger's car had put me on edge. I had lived in the neighborhood for a few years and never once saw this car. I put on some clothes and began to walk down my stairs and towards the front door, but as I did, the banging began again. It was coming from the back door. I slowly walked towards the door with my heart racing. The closer I got, the louder the bangs were. Whatever was causing it was trying to smash the door off its hinges. I wanted to scream, "Get the hell away from my house!" However, for once in my life, I made the smart decision and ran up the stairs and went into my bedroom before barricading my door and calling 911. The operator picked up just as I heard a window smash from downstairs. "There's a man in my house! He's trying to kill me!" I screamed before she responded, telling me to calm down and to tell her my location. She asked me to stay on the line and that a squad car was close by. I heard heavy footsteps stomping up my stairs and towards my door before stopping. The operator asked, was I still there? But before I could answer her inquiry, the man started to attempt to knock my door down. The bangs on the door were deafening. The operator kept pushing me to respond, but I couldn't. I was transfixed on the door, and how with every sickening thud that psycho got closer and closer. Suddenly, I could hear sirens in the distance, and the banging stopped, followed by the sound of quick steps speeding down the stairs, and shortly after, the sound of a car starting and speeding away. A few minutes later, the lights from the sirens illuminated my room. This broke me out of my frozen, fearful state. I moved the barricade and ran down my stairs and out the front door to the police. They questioned me for some time and searched around my house. They found shoe and axe marks on both doors. My bedroom door had a massive hole in it from where the lunatic was cutting in. I gave them a full statement and told them everything. When all was finished, they drove me to my friend's house as I couldn't stay at mine anymore. The next day, I rang my landlord and canceled my tenancy, which cost me my deposit and a cancellation fee. I've been staying with my friend while I look for a new place. I haven't been sleeping at all, as I'm terrified that the psycho will find me again. The police found no evidence that could be used to find him, bar the Camry, but there are thousands of them in the state alone. I fear for my life every day, and I'm unsure if I'll ever be safe again. Stay off the dark web. It is mostly used by jokesters, but it only takes one wrong click to put your life in danger. Thanks for listening, Wolfpack. If you want to submit your own story, the links for my email and subreddit will be down below. I've also created a Discord, so if you want to join that, the link will be in the description down below as well. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And with that said, have beautiful nightmares, and I will see you next time.